Hi guys, and welcome back to another Draw With Me video. In this video I will take you through my whole entire process of drawing a portrait, and the video is quite long, so grab yourself a snack or a drink and let's get started. So for this portrait, and I think for almost every other portrait and generally all the illustrations that I make, I find my inspiration on Pinterest, and I think for this one I just clicked myself through all the pictures and finally saw this girl and I felt inspired by her. I liked her hair and I also liked the colors, so I went and drew her. I'm going to speed up the process a little bit to make this video not too long. After I finished the first very rough sketch, I lowered the opacity of this one to about, 10%, maybe 10-15%, and then I add another layer on top of it to create a more clean sketch. And for sketching, I almost always use the Terrace Vine Char sketch. It has a really nice texture and it feels very natural, so I really like it. Then I went ahead and tested the colors that I used, and for that I created a layer underneath the sketch layer, and I selected the hot airbrush and just experimented with some of the colors until I liked it. And once I was happy with everything, I went ahead and created the final clean sketch, and again I selected the sketch layer and lowered the opacity, and then I added another layer on top of it, and I used the Terrace Vine Char sketch for sketching, and yeah, basically just cleaned everything up. And then one thing I always like to do is I take the layer where I tested all the colors and like make it smaller and put it on the side, so I can always just color pick everything. And here I lowered the opacity of the final sketch to about 10%, created a new layer underneath the sketch layer, and with the hard airbrush and the skin color I colored everything in flat. The layer I just created, I'm just going to call it base shape layer from now on. I select it and then I create another layer on top and basically create a new layer for everything that's going to come now. So I'm creating a layer for the flat hair, I'm creating a layer for the flat colors of her outfit and everything. And I do that while always having the base shape layer selected, so I won't color over the lines basically. Most artists do that step using clipping masks, but I don't know, I just find this technique more easy for me, probably just because I learned it like that. But you can do it however you want. I always go with the select option. For the blush, I create a new layer right on top of the skin layer, color pick the skin color, move the slider to a more dark red color, select the soft brush and lightly brush over her cheeks, her ears and her shoulders. Then on another layer, I make my typical blush stroke using the chalk brush and an even more reddish color. Finally, I select the bonobo brush, which is super nice because it has a lot of texture, and I go over some of the parts again. And then I add in some of the white details on her top and on her headscarf using the Terrace Note pencil and the white color. For the lashes, I always use the Terrace Oval Sketch brush, which is really nice because it is really feathery at the end, and it can be really thin when you apply less pressure, and it can be really thick if you apply a lot of pressure, so it's the perfect brush for lashes. Once I'm done filling in all the flat colors, I create a new layer on top of everything, select the dry ink brush and draw in all of the lines that need to be there, like nose, mouth, hair texture, things like that. So the next step is adding shadows. So here I grouped everything before I went on to the shadows. I don't know why, because I usually do that at the very end, but okay, whatever. So for the shadows, I add another layer on top of everything, and I put that layer on multiply. Then I selected a very bright and warm reddish yellowish color and the Terrace Oval sketch to add in the shadows. Oh, and again I selected the base shape layer first, so I won't color over the lines. If you don't know where to put the shadows, I would suggest you find a reference photo with the same pose and just see where the shadows are. I do that a lot of times too, but for this one I didn't do it. I just drew it in where I thought shadows would be. And then I felt like she looks weird without having real lips, so I painted them in. I like the eye color to not be flat, so I used the soft brush to lightly brush in some darker color from the top. Then I create a new layer and set it to overlay to brush in some lighter colors from the bottom. This way they appear more glowy and you get a really nice gradient. I think for this one though, I used the Bonobo brush instead of the soft brush. And the final touch, of course, don't forget the highlights in the eyes. Then my favorite step is the details. So I create another layer on top of everything, and with the dry ink brush I just kind of draw in some individual hair strands here and there to make everything look more natural. I think I accidentally cut out the part where I select the layer, but here you see me adding in highlights. I do that by creating a new layer on top of everything again, setting it to overlay this time, picking a bright and warm color in the Terrace Over sketch brush and drawing them in where the light hits. I really like my shadows to have different colors instead of just one flat color, so I select the shadow layer and play around with different colors and tones. And by the way, I use the soft brush for that, and I try to have deeper shadows where the sun hits least, obviously, and I try to make them look more bluish or purpley. And here at the end you just see me adding in random bits and pieces like highlights and just small details that I realize that I can add. To add some texture to her hair scarf, I select the layer where I painted in the flat colors of her scarf, add a layer right on top of it, which I set to multiply, and I use a Procreate standard brush called Fresco, and I use a bright color because I don't want too much texture. And I do the same thing on her top. Okay, now I feel like I'm happy with everything, so I am ready for some final adjustments I always make. For that, I put everything into one group, duplicate the group to be safe when I make a mistake so I can go back, and then I flatten the duplicated group, so everything is on one layer. Then I go to the adjustments panel and go to the curves. I lower the composite, add more reds and blues, and also add more saturation. If you want to get a more detailed explanation of what exactly I do here, you can watch part 3 of my Drawing Basics tutorial, where I talk about the last adjustments I make using curves and levels. It is already in your tier, so if you can watch this video, you can also watch the tutorial. So I don't know why I didn't record that as well, but I always add a noise filter on top of my illustrations at the end. To do that, you need to have everything, the illustration and the background, on one layer. So I export and import the illustration as a PNG and add a noise filter at like 10%. You can find the noise filter at the adjustments panel as well. And then I felt like the illustration is missing some more shadows and deeper shadows, so I added them in. And then I airdropped everything to my iPhone to see how the illustration looks like, and I exported the illustration as a JPEG here, but I would suggest you using a PNG export file because it has a better quality. I filmed this video a while ago, so now I only export in PNG. And then I noticed the earrings were missing, so I added them back in. And yeah, just exported everything to my iPhone again. And that's it. I hope you liked this draw with me. I hope I explained everything. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below and I do my best to answer them. And I hope you have a nice day and I see you in my next one. Bye!